Good afternoon, everyone. Ben here, and today we are going to be doing my final midterm prediction. Before I do anything, I want to encourage everyone who hasn't already to go vote tomorrow. If you have already voted, don't vote tomorrow for obvious reasons. I don't think I need to tell anyone that that's illegal. As always, my Patreon will be in the description. If you feel like contributing, contribute. If you don't. It's whatever. So let's talk about now, I have a blank Senate map because I'm going to go through, and of course a blank gubernatorial map because I want to go through and just cover them all, really. So, for California, which is the only state where there's 2 Democrats running because they're jungle primary, I'm going to say Dianne Feinstein is more than likely going to win the election there. So there's that. In Washington, I think it's pretty safe to say that Maria Cantwell will beat Suzanne Hutchinson, not Susanna. I guess we'll go to New York, where Kirsten Gillibrand is pretty safe in this race. Vermont is going to go to Bernie Sanders. Angus King will more than likely win his race on the first ballot. Massachusetts, I don't think Elizabeth Warren is in any danger. Sheldon Whitehouse is not in any danger. In Rhode Island, Chris Murphy really isn't in danger. In Connecticut, by the way, just as for anyone new to the channel, the shading indicates my confidence level in the prediction rather than what I expect the vote margin to be. So the darker the shade, the safer I feel about making that bet. It's a race that I really don't see going the other direction. New Jersey we'll come back to. In Delaware, I don't see Tom Carper losing. Maryland, Ben Cardin is gonna win. I'm actually rating both Minnesota seats as safe for the Democrats. Amy Klobuchar versus Jim Newberger, and Tina Smith versus Karen Housley. Now, for the states that I'm rating as safe for the Republicans, Mitt Romney will be the next senator from Utah. He is replacing Orrin Hatch. John Barrasso is going to win in Wyoming. I really don't see Deb Fischer as vulnerable. Depending on where you look, some will say it's marginally competitive, as in you might see it dip below 10% for the margin of victory. It's not really in any danger. By the way, this already puts Republicans at 45. That should really worry Democrats. That Republicans only need 3 to be at 45, and they're favored in a few other states that make it really easy for them to win this thing outright. For example, in Mississippi, we've got Roger Wicker, this is the normal election for Mississippi, and Roger Wicker is safe to win that one. The Republicans are going to win the Mississippi special election, and Cindy Hyde-Smith will more than likely be the representative. However, I'm not going to rate this as safe because they do kind of like a California-style system for special elections with a jungle on election day, And if you win 50% or more of the vote, you automatically win the seat. If not, if no one breaks 50%, the top two candidates go to a runoff. And I'm expecting this to go to a runoff, and Cindy Hyde-Smith is gonna win that because it's Mississippi. And that puts Republicans at 47. So now let's talk about the states that I have left, which may or may not be competitive depending on what you want to think. Oh, forgot about Hawaii, where Mazie Hirono is going to beat Ron Curtis. And I guess I really don't see Virginia is going to be competitive. I feel comfortable in saying this race is safe for Tim Kaine. I haven't seen anything locally that will change that. Get out of my face, ad. And I don't think Corey Stewart is going to appeal to Northern Virginia voters as much as he maybe thinks he will. So now we get into the competitive races where you're going to start finding out things about how the night's going to go. Let's run them down. Let's just go in. I'm going to go in any random order. Actually, sorry, I forgot about New Mexico as well. Heinrich is going to beat Mick Rich and Gary Johnson. Just about everyone should see this one coming. So that puts the battleground at 15 states. Democrats have 38 to are behind 38-47, so that's a 9-seat gap they have to make up. They have to win. So out of 15, they need to win 9 to break even, which would leave Mike Pence as the controlling vote. 10 if they won an outright majority. And Republicans, they only need 3. They literally only need 3 seats. So actually, Democrats have to win. Get out of my face, Ed. Anyway, so let's go to Indiana, which will be the first poll closing. This is going to be a very narrow race and a narrow election and very close. And the thing to look for is if Mike Braun is winning this seat, it's going to be a very bad night for Democrats. Okay, Joe Donnelly, while one of the most vulnerable Democratic senators, is currently, according to most people, forecasted to win this race. And I mostly agree. However, I think it's so close that I want to call it a true toss-up. Okay? And I'm actually going to say it is a true toss-up. I'm tilting it to Donnelly, but if Mike Braun wins this race, Democrats are going to lose the Senate. Stupid ad. Anyway, so if by 10 o'clock this race isn't called, Democrats should be really worried. If it's called for Mike Braun before 10 o'clock, Democrats should be extremely worried because at that point they may actually be losing the House. Let's go to Ohio, where I really don't think Sherrod Brown's under any real threat from Jim Renacci. I'm actually rating this as likely simply because there is an outside shot of Renacci winning. If there is a systematic error in the polls, and if Republicans can maintain their traditional on election day voting edge that they always have, because Republicans have been turning out to early vote much more than anyone expected, and in most places slightly more than Democrats, which I think is shocking to some people. And it kind of surprised me. We're going to go to Pennsylvania, where Bob Casey really isn't under any threat from Lou Barletta. I'm actually rating this as safe for Bob Casey. And in New Jersey, we're going to go over to New Jersey. Why not? Bob Menendez is more than likely going to win this race, though Bob Hugin has definitely competed in this race and brought it within the margin of error a couple of times, and depending on who you ask, it's still within the margin of error. I don't think he's going to win it, but if Democrats are losing this seat, they shouldn't be too worried, because Menendez has issues. We'll put it at that. Menendez has issues, mostly stemming from the fact that he is one of the 5 or 6 most corrupt politicians in America. I'm not going to put a ranking out as to my top 10 most corrupt politicians in America. But anyway, that's what I'm going to say about this race. I think Menendez is more than likely going to win it. So let's go over to West Virginia. Why not? Last time I was up here, last time I was up in West Virginia, Manchin is pretty popular. I'm actually rating this as safe for him. Now here's the thing. If Patrick Morrisey keeps this extremely close, or even wins this race, there's a very good chance that the Republicans pick up a lot of seats that I've rated as likely. There's a good chance that Renacci is winning in Ohio. We'll talk about Michigan, Wisconsin, probably even Montana, because Manchin is a lot like Tester and Heitkamp in that he has a very strong local brand and is a Democrat that fits a Republican state. And Manchin has a uniquely good fit for West Virginia. So again, if Manchin loses this, that's going to that really needs to be cause for concern for Democrats nationwide. So anyway, let's go down to Tennessee, the volunteer state. Last time I was here, the only real ads I saw were from Blackburn. And Bredesen, yeah, he did have ads, but I just don't think they work in this day and age. But unfortunately, Bredesen couldn't campaign on the federal level because, from an idea that he was a good match for what Tennessee wants at the national level, because it's too easy to cast any Democrat as in bed with Pelosi. And I'm going to stop using that phrase because when we're talking about politicians, we're typically talking about really old people who are wrinkled, and I don't think anyone wants that mental image. So I've rated this as likely for Marsha Blackburn, but I can't justify putting in the safe column for her, even though I'm extremely confident about this. Simply because Bredesen does have a shot at winning this, because he is like Manchin, he is like Tester, he is like Heitkamp. He is a good fit for Tennessee, but Marsha Blackburn has been running a very good campaign in terms of what she needs to do to win. Get out of my face, Ed. Let's go down to Florida, where we've got the incumbent Bill Nelson and Rick Scott, the governor of Florida. To put it shortly, I think this race is going to go to Bill Nelson. I'm only tilting it towards him because Florida is just too tight of a state and always is to call. if Rick Scott wins this, Republicans are taking back the Senate. And this is actually, or not taking back, but they are probably expanding their Senate margin. Same thing with Indiana, for that matter. Or Ohio or West Virginia, or New Jersey. They're going to be expanding their majority. The question really is, how much are they going to expand it by when they take, if they take Florida, not when, because I'm not sure it'll happen. So that's my spiel on Florida. It's a tilt only because I can't justify leaning it or putting it in any other category. Michigan. John James has been gaining ground in all the polls I've seen. He seems to have really actually gained some momentum in this race. I don't think it's enough, but it is interesting that he has gained momentum. As such, I'm still leaving this as likely for Stabenow. She is the incumbent. She is popular in a state where, or not necessarily popular, but she's a Democrat in a state where Trump is marginally unpopular. And I'm not sure if John James can bridge that enthusiasm gap. That said, pay attention to states like this, where if John James is more competitive than is expected, it's a very bad sign for Democrats, because it's showing us that the 2016 Trump coalition still exists and still has power. Get out of my face, ad. So let's go to Wisconsin. Tammy Baldwin versus Leah Vukmir. I'm going to be frank, this is kind of Tammy Baldwin's race to lose. I really don't see her losing this seat. Again, if it's more competitive than we've expected, or if Vukmir is pulling an upset, this should be cause for concern for Democrats and cause for celebration for Republicans. Pretty much if either of these two races go to the Republican, Ohio is definitely going to Renacci. Indiana is definitely going to Braun. You could probably expect Patrick Morrissey to have won in West Virginia, and there's a very good chance Rick Scott would pull the upset in Florida. And, oh, by the way, the next race we're going to cover would also go to Josh Hawley. So that would be a swing of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in favor of the Republicans, all because looking at the voting patterns of these states and how they correspond to national patterns. If a Republican is winning in the Senate in these two states, you can make safe assumptions about the other ones. There would also probably be a good chance Hugin wins, but this is a very localized election because of scandal. So that would already put Republicans in a massive majority. You can flip 6 races to them, and actually 7. And that would mean Virginia is actually competitive. By the way, if Virginia is competitive, Democrats should be exceedingly worried. Now, of course, on the flip side, if any of these races is competitive, Republicans need to be extremely concerned. And we'll talk about Texas in just a second. So, Missouri. Well, this race is probably the closest race in the Senate, other than Nevada, but we'll talk about Nevada. McCaskill has been fighting off a lot of people saying, a lot of attack ads saying she's just another Democrat who's just like the coastal elites and not the moderate Democrat we voted for. by simply going out there and saying, I'm not one of the crazy Democrats, which drew a lot of ire from her own party. So she's almost a candidate without a party at this point. She has support from Democrats, but I'm not sure if they're happy to be working with her at this point because she insulted a growing wing of the party. You know, it might not be too long if she somehow manages to win this. And there's a reason why I say somehow manages to win this. There's a non-zero chance that if the Democrats continue to get more and more, go in the more Bernie Sanders direction, but also tapping into the anger of the people going, resist Trump or whatever, I could foresee her switching parties because she doesn't want to be associated with the people who were making her out to be a Democrat in name only, despite the fact that she's trying to hold on to the title of moderate Democrat. You know, she may switch parties, if not probably not positions. You know, she'd be classified as a liberal Republican, which I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But Missouri is a weird state. I think Hawley is running a very smart campaign so far and forcing McCaskill to make moves like saying, well, I'm not one of the crazy Democrats, to anger her own party. I think that was a smart move. And I don't know. I don't see a lot of votes outside of St. Louis and Kansas City, except maybe a few of the suburbs and probably a few areas along the Mississippi, predominantly African-American areas, being where McCaskill makes up for her, where she's going to massively lose in rural areas. And Missouri is a perfect example of the rural-urban divide. You've got St. Louis, you got Kansas City, and that's it for the cities. You got suburbs, which are fair play to both sides. In a state like Missouri, they're going to probably lean Republican simply because it's such an overwhelmingly rural state, rural/ex-urban. I'm going to tilt this to Hawley, but I really do think this is a 50-50 race. McCaskill wins it 49 times. If it's run 100 times, if the election is held 100 times, McCaskill wins 49% of the time. You know, gets 49 wins. Hawley gets 51. That's essentially what I'm trying to say with this. Let's go to Texas, where, by the way, this is one of those, it could really go either way, so I wouldn't take too much I wouldn't take too much stock in it if Democrats win it or if Republicans win it. This is the truest of true toss-up states in this election. Unless the outcome is dramatic in one direction or the other. Like, if Hawley's winning by 15%, that may be a sign of something bigger at play. But I expect the vote margin to be within like 2%. Probably within 1%. So let's go down to Texas, where Ted Cruz is battling Beto O'Rourke. I've heard him called Beto. Okay. Yes, polls have shown this is a competitive race. The truth is, Texas is still very much a red state. It is starting to turn a little more purple. But Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio cannot outvote the rest of the state. Not yet. And the suburbs of all three of those cities vote Republican. Very much so. And Fort Worth is a very Republican city. Though you do have El Paso to try and balance Fort Worth out. Yeah, no. Sorry, Beto. You're more than likely not winning it. Though, if it's more competitive, like if this race is within 1% or 2%, that's a good sign for Democrats. If it's about where Trump won it, there's not, about a 9% margin of victory. Nothing can be said about this race. However, if Republicans are winning it by more than 10 or 11%, like if Cruz is winning by 15, 20%, yeah, Democrats should be extremely concerned. Let's go up to North Dakota, where I really don't see Heitkamp winning this race. She could do it, don't get me wrong, but Kramer hit her hard on the Kavanaugh vote, which I think she's being punished unduly for her no vote. But I can kind of understand why North Dakota is punishing her for it, even if I disagree with it. I think she was perfectly reasonable in voting no. Personally, I would have voted no on Kavanaugh, simply because I don't think the Supreme Court needs that level of controversy around it. Even if I disagree with maybe how it was handled, there's a certain point where you have to say, let's back off on this nominee. Anyway, Montana, you've got John Tester, very strong brand in Montana, versus Matt Rosendale, who's kind of an unknown. Tester is more than likely going to win this. I'm going to put this in the likely for Tester column. It's going to be marginally competitive. I expect between 5 and 10%. However, if Matt Rosendale makes it extremely competitive, that's again a sign that Democrats need to panic. If Rosendale is losing by 20, 30%, Republicans should panic. But if it's, just slightly over 10 to about maybe 15%, it's John Tester. He should be expected to do that against an unknown in Montana. So let's go to Nevada, where I don't really trust any forecast that gives us to Dean Heller. Jackie Rosen will have a narrow advantage. I'm probably 1 or 2%. I'm still only tilting it to her simply because polls have shown Heller winning, but I'm very, very skeptical about that. Arizona is a true toss-up, but I think Kyrsten Sinema, because of party, is going to have a slight advantage there. Enough to where I'm going to call this a tilt. So I'm expecting a 51-49 Senate, though there are a lot of races where the Democrats are not exactly in the best position. Let's describe it like that. Let's see. Yeah, so that's kind of what I expect. From the Senate, so this is what the Senate breakdown would look like. Any state that is more than one color shows a split. So let's close that out and go to the gubernatorial election where I've spent 30 minutes. So I'm going to kind of just more quickly run down this. Safe Democrat, I'm only going to lean Alaska because the race has gotten competitive. Idaho is safe for the Republican there. Oregon, Kate Brown is going to more than likely narrowly win versus Newt Bueller. For similar reasons to the Senate race, I'm only tilting this to Sisolak. Arizona, Doug Ducey is a major favorite. New Mexico is probably going to go to the Democrat. And when I say probably, it's a safe race. Colorado, or Colorado, as I normally say, not Colorado. Colorado is going to go more than likely to Jared Polis. I feel fairly confident about it, but not enough to say it's safe. If someone other than a Republican wins Wyoming, something's fishy and going wrong. South Dakota, I'm putting as likely for the Republicans. I've seen polls showing it very close, but I'm skeptical of those for a lot of reasons. Nebraska is probably safe for the Republicans. Kansas, I'm only tilting for Chris Kobach there. Kevin Stitt is in a competitive race in Oklahoma. Texas is safe for Greg Abbott. Arkansas, that's a safe Republican seat if I've ever seen one. I'm only tilting the Iowa gubernatorial election. I'm putting this as likely for the Democrat in Minnesota. Wisconsin, I'm only leaning to Tony Evers simply because Scott Walker has this weird history of outperforming all of his polls by large margins. But I'm still skeptical of it simply because there's been a lot of information showing Evers ahead. Michigan, I'm putting as likely for the Democrats. Illinois is safe Democrat. I really don't see Rauner as holding on to this seat or even making it competitive. Ohio, I'm tilting it to DeWine. Pennsylvania, if I remember correctly, has Democrat, and I'm expecting the Democrats to win here as well. Maryland, Larry Hogan will win that race easy. Same with Charlie Baker in Massachusetts and Phil Scott in Vermont. New Hampshire, Chris Sununu is going to have a slightly tighter race than I've been anticipating. I've seen a lot of information showing polls have tightened up, but I do expect Sununu to win. I have seen like maybe 2 or 3 polls. I'm still only leaning Maine to the Democrats. New York, that's Cuomo's seat to lose. Rhode Island and Connecticut, I'm expecting to go to the Democrats, but they're New England states and a liberal Republican could easily win them. I forget the names of the people running there, but I do expect those to be somewhat competitive. South Carolina is going to be somewhat competitive, but it's a southern state with very few swing voters. I'm marking this as safe for the Republicans. Alabama, basically the same thing, except I haven't seen anything showing that race is competitive. Tennessee, also another safe state for the Republicans. Just don't really think it's all that competitive. So now we're on to Georgia and Florida. The Florida-Georgia line. Georgia, I'm expecting Brian Kemp to win, but it's going to be maybe more competitive than previous gubernatorial elections in the Peach State. So look for this one to be fairly competitive, but expect Brian Kemp to beat Stacey Abrams. However, Andrew Gillum is probably going to win in Florida, so much that I'm actually leaning towards him. I think he's just more popular than Ron DeSantis. So this is what my gubernatorial map looks like. This will be, if I'm correct, this is what the party breakdown state by state will look like. So anyway, thank y'all so much for watching. Hope y'all enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time on Wednesday, where I'm going to break from presidential stuff to do kind of a breakdown of what happened. Actually, real quick, we're going to go to the House. I'm not going to project every single seat. I'm just going to give you where the margin I expect the vote to be in, as in the total House ballot nationwide, what the vote margin I expect. Like, I'm going to say Dem plus whatever, or Republican plus whatever, Rep plus whatever. And how many seats I expect the Democrats to win, and that'll be a range as well. So I expect the margin to be between Democrat plus 4 and Democrat plus 10. Democrat plus 10. And I expect the Democrats to win anywhere between 20 and 30 seats. And you can go ahead and add 2 or 3 points for the Democrats on the margin. So really, Dem plus 4 to Dem plus 13. And add about 10 seats. So actually make that between 20 and 40 seats for the House of Representatives. So anyway, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy. Have a nice day. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.